Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I gotta tell you, my former commanding officer when I was in the Navy, an admiral, once told me never start a presentation with an apology. It sets the wrong tone. But I gotta apologize to you real quick. I'm gonna break that rule. In fact, my apology is I tend to break all the rules of public speaking. For one, apologizing. Two, I don't have the benefit of reading from notes. I am blind, totally blind. These are prosthetics, and totally deaf except for this one cochlear implant. So without this little piece of incredible technology, I'd be pulling the full Helen Keller right now. So I also don't really listen for audience feedback. And if I make eye contact, it's by accident. And a touchstone to make sure I'm facing the right direction. So my name is Aaron Hale. I'm a former Navy cook turned Army bomb tech. I tell people that I got my first confirmed kill with an egg roll before deciding to start saving lives instead. On July 5th last year, I'd already be on my feet running across Death Valley for over 24 hours. We set off in the evening on the 4th of July, just before the fireworks were set off in Las Vegas. And I ran across Death Valley and over one mountain range. And I don't know how far up the crucible of the world's toughest foot race, a section of the course called Father Crawley. It's this murderous switchback up the second mountain range. 4,000 foot climb over about 8 miles. And of course it's hot. Over 125 degrees, 130 degrees, the entire race. Doesn't go much further down, the mercury doesn't go down at night. The wind was pretty brutal. It was like standing in front of a giant hair dryer. And we're climbing this terrible mountain. And these switchbacks were on the road. Not only are we going up and side to side, and it's really hot, and we've already been running for an entire day, but the road on these switchbacks did this bevel, like a racetrack curve. And as an added bonus, when I went blind, I also got the added gift of a sleep disorder because my circadian rhythm, that sleep-wake cycle, doesn't get reset with the sun. And when I lost my hearing, I also lost that inner ear gyro, my vestibular balance. And all of my balance comes from my sense of feeling, from my feet and my muscles and nerves. And the more fatigued I get, of course, the more out of whack I get. So my balance was really failing me as we're going up this mountain and I'm tilting and I'm fatigued. I'm hot, I'm miserable. I've got blisters growing under blisters. And I can tell you that over the experience in the military and deployments and having gone through what I've gone through after going blind, I will fight forever. I will never quit. I will pick up and put down my feet as many times as it takes to finish the job. But on that mountainside, in the back of my head, there was that little demon, that devil on my shoulder, the voice that talks to you. of failure, of hopelessness and helplessness. The voice that says, you can't do this, you're not strong enough, this is too hard, too high, too far, you can't do it. And I will pick up my legs and I will put them down and I will pump until my legs, my muscles and my veins are pumping battery acid and I'm breathing smoke. But I was terrified because even though I could pick up and put down my feet, I had no idea where they were going to land. And I was terribly afraid because we only had this section of road. The entire way was paved. It was on this road, very busy road. And we only were allowed to run between the white line and the berm, about 2 feet width. And I was really unstable. And I would hear these cars come screaming down the mountain around these switchbacks. If I fell to one side, I would do a combat raw, turn into a sugar cookie in the dirt. If I fell to the other side, I'd eat the grill of an oncoming Volvo. And it terrified me. And it made me feel like I couldn't manage. I couldn't go on. I didn't know how much further. I couldn't see the top of the mountain. I couldn't see anything. And that demon would come to talk to me and tell me to quit. You're not even supposed to be here. And all I could think was, how did I get here anyways? See, growing up, high school, college, you could best describe me as the all-American slacker. I had enough talent, natural ability, charisma to get by without a whole lot of effort and just get, B's and C's, right? BS the way through the rest. But when I got to college, everybody was quickly passing me by. Everybody who knew how to work hard had that thing called work ethic. So after a few semesters and gaining that freshman 50, I decided to change course. I joined the Navy. I became a cook. Eventually, while stationed in Italy, worked my way up to becoming the personal chef of a 3-star admiral, the commander of the 6th Fleet. And I tell you what, I got to cook for the admiral and his top brass, hang up my uniform after lunchtime and go become an Italian, travel all over Italy, experiencing the cuisine and the culture and traveling to other places in Europe, France, Germany, Malta. And even while on duty aboard the ship, we would pull into ports all around the Mediterranean. Hardship duty, it was not. But this was the early 2000s, and we found ourselves in 2 wars all of a sudden. I joined in 99. So I joined in a time of peace, and all of a sudden, we're fighting 2 wars. But even though everybody's got an important role to play in the military, every job is important, I was a cook on board this ship in the middle of the Mediterranean, and I was watching Iraq and Afghanistan happen on the television, Fox and CNN. On the way to getting that tuition money that I pissed away the first time, my goal was to first get the GI Bill, right, and do it the right way the next time, do 4 years, get out, and in the process, learn those skills that I was lacking, the core values, work ethic, the internal values, pride and accomplishment and setting goals and actually following through. Only problem was I picked up some external values like, pride in one's duty, selfless service, teamwork, and leadership. And I really enjoyed being in the military. And while these wars were rolling out, and I felt a calling for something different, something more. I wanted to provide more of a service, given my talents and abilities and the skills I'd picked up along the way. I wanted to play a larger role in the effort. So I volunteered to deploy to Afghanistan, still as a Navy cook, but I went from cooking for the admiral and his top brass to cooking for hundreds of NATO troops in Farah, Afghanistan. And that's when I met a couple of EOD technicians, explosive ordnance disposal, the military's bomb squad. They had their armored truck out in the parking lot, and they had all their gear dumped out on the parking lot. They were doing maintenance checks and bomb suits, robots, checking all the batteries, making sure it was all clean so it would function when we needed it to. And it was like a cool guy garage sale. I could struck up a conversation with them, and the technical aspect of the job, the brotherhood within a brotherhood, the fact that there were first responders on the battlefield when everybody was running away, they were running into the danger. They're the guys that get in that spacesuit and go into imminent danger. And for some reason, that's exactly what I wanted to do. So when it comes to the Navy, let me switch from cook to bomb squad, and of course my request was denied. I guess they like my cooking too much. But when I got back from Afghanistan, I hung up my uniform. I let my contract run out on the Navy, and I went over to the Army recruiter, and they welcomed me on board. So I became a bomb technician. Then I deployed once to Iraq, and in 2011, I went back to Afghanistan, this time as an EOD team leader, the guy that actually gets in the bomb suit and makes that long, lonely walk. And we were busy. If you can imagine the meaning behind what one of my friends, another EOD technician, once said, every step on that battlefield, every step was a deliberate act. These IEDs, these very simple, improvised explosives, were buried everywhere. Just a simple oil jug full of fertilizer, a pressure plate made out of plywood, a 9-volt battery, and all connected by lamp cord. So simple, so rudimentary, and so effective against all of the technology and the training that we had. They just littered the place with them. So my team was busy every single day. And for 8 months out of a 12-month deployment, we were go, go, go. And then I got to do my 2 weeks of R&R, leave back to the United States. 2 weeks I got to see my firstborn turn 1. I got to witness the whole family get together for Thanksgiving, which I tell you what is one of my favorite holidays. For one, you get to gather every one of your favorite, most beloved people and the rest of your family and tell them what you're grateful for, especially them. And, two, you get the excuse to eat like an absolute glutton. But all of that was I call it the best last page in the photo album. Because I soon was back in Afghanistan, and I threw my luggage back on the robot in the back of my armored truck with my team. My team picked me up from Kandahar airfield, and we jumped into a supply convoy to head out to our own battlefield, our AO. And along the way, that convoy commander said, EOD, we got something on the side of the road, need you to take a look. You ever seen that movie Clerks? Like, I'm not even supposed to be here today. I'm not on duty. I'm just, a hitchhiker. I'm a tag along on this convoy. But nobody's going to expect the quick reaction force to come from the closest base when you got an EOD team right in the convoy with you. So I threw the luggage off of the robot, threw the robot out of the truck, and we got to work. And of course, we found the jug and the pressure plate and a 9-volt battery. And the robot did what it was supposed to do, and we had that thing separated. I wanted to get some evidence because we're also like CSI on the battlefield. We want to get that tape and the wire and the chemical analysis and all that. So I jumped out of the truck, no bombs to it, because remember, this thing's taken apart now. And I made my way up with a metal detector and an evidence kit, and about 20 or 30 meters from the original ID, there just happened to be another one that hadn't yet been detected. And that thing punted me into the air. In hindsight, if I'd done something heroic while in mid-flight, I might have been able to get that distinguished flying cross. Hindsight. But I landed on my knees and elbows, the lights went out, my bell was seriously rung, but I was still awake. First thing was I needed to figure out the extent of the damage, right? So I couldn't see, but I wiggled all the fingers and toes, did the functions check, right? All right, everybody, all the extremities seemed to be there. And I thought I couldn't see because my helmet had gotten pushed over the top of my face. So I reached up to fix it and get back in the fight, only to find that my helmet was gone. That's when I thought, oh no, this is bad. My first sergeant's gonna kill me for losing that thing. Well, that's when I realized I'd actually taken some damage. And I couldn't see for a whole different reason. My team grabbed me, dragged me back to the safe area, the medevac chopper. Coming from where we just left, was there in about 14 minutes, and I was heading right back. Within 2 days, I was in Walter Reed in Bethesda, Maryland. Completely blind. The blast had taken my eyes, it had cracked my skull in a couple of places. I was leaking spinal fluid right out my nose. It had blown out my eardrums, but I could still hear. It was diminished, but I could still hear at that time. And those demons, they were right there. You know, that devil talking on the side, on your shoulder, going, you should have found that. How did that get you? We're the most highly trained, best equipped fighting force on the planet. How did these cavemen get you with this oil jug? You should have zigged when you zagged. I was angry. I was feeling hopeless. I was angry at the world, but mostly I was angry at myself. Then I wanted to quit. I can't be a father anymore. I can't be a soldier. I can't be an EOD tech. I can't. Those what ifs and why me's. That was just clouding my thoughts. But I remembered I had a few things going for me. And the reason I came here to talk to you today is about leverage. I know that's a kind of a curveball there, but I know real estate guys, we love talking leverage. But not just leveraging OPM, though that will come in, but leveraging the power of other people, of your team, leveraging the power of your own mind. So I was sitting there and I remembered that I had an incredible team around me. Not just the doctors and the nurses and the medical staff, but my family. My mom, who's already been through horrible tragedy with my younger brother, who had been in a roadside, a highway accident, a roadside construction accident. And she came in and all sunshine and rainbows, right? Hi, honey. And the only thing I could think of was, I'm so sorry, Mom, that I did this to your other son. And she said, oh, honey, not my first rodeo. We're going to be all right. Like that. My mind had just shifted. My frame of my beliefs was shifted just like that, just from one other person saying, it's not as bad as you think it is. And I had other warriors up and down those halls, people that I'd fought and bled with on the battlefield, all going through their own personal battles. I couldn't let them down. Who was I to say that I had a good enough excuse to quit? Everybody in that hospital was fighting, and they were fighting their own personal battles. But we are one fighting force. And I had to remember that. So I leveraged the power of their own strength. I leveraged the power of my family. And I got to work. And I decided that if I was going to be blind for the rest of my life, I was going to be the best damn blind guy I could be. So I learned how to be blind first. After I got out of Walter Ray, they sent me to the Augusta VA Blind Rehabilitation Center, blind school, where I learned how to use the voiceover, the text-to-speech software, my phone, my computer, and learn how to navigate with the long cane. And all sorts of simple living skills, like how do I keep my socks paired? Which was definitely a challenge when it came to. But first thing I could do once I learned how to use my search engine on my phone was I started typing in blind plus outside, blind plus fitness, blind plus. I did not want to be locked in this. I didn't want to be pigeonholed by my disability, and I wanted to see what other people were doing. And a few names kept popping up. Eric Weinmayer is the first blind person to climb Mount Everest. Lonnie Bedwell is the first blind person to kayak the entire Grand Canyon in a solo boat. Ivan Castro stayed on active duty military service as a ranger, got his commission, and went to the Special Operations Recruiting Branch. And I looked up Eric, and I went mountain climbing with him. I found Lonnie, and we went kayaking together. Although I spent more time upside down in the water than I spent up. And I contacted Ivan. He gave it's a terrible idea, but he was the one who first said, you know, I'm making a point every year to run the Marine Corps Marathon, the Army 10-miler, and Air Force Marathon. I thought, that's really cool. That's really patriotic. I think I'll do that too. So I signed up for all three of those. I registered for those races. Somebody talked me into a local race, so I registered for the Pensacola Marathon. And I don't even know how, but some nonprofit contacted me and said, hey, we'll pay your way if you run with us at the San Antonio Rock and Roll Marathon. So I was registered for 4 marathons and a 10-miler, all within a span of 4 months. I'd never run anything longer than a 10K in my life. I figured I'd better find a coach. So I leveraged the power of somebody else's experience, and I ran those races. 3 of the 4 marathons qualified me for Boston, which I ran in 2014. I started making the best out of my situation by living, if you're familiar with the gap in the game, living in the game, and just looking back to show how far I'd come. I started speaking. I started mountain climbing and kayaking and running these marathons, and I thought I was living this great life, and I was on the top of the hill, and then life decided to teach me a little more humility. I think God has the same sardonic humor as a soldier. Because as I'm talking to crowds, just like what I'm talking to today, about triumph over tragedy and success through struggle, not despite it, that somebody tapped me on the shoulder, that power tapped me on the shoulder and said, put your money where your mouth is. Do it again. Remember that cracks in my skull that I had from a couple of years earlier complicated things, because even though it got patched up, I guess it didn't completely get patched, and there was a small leak. And a path out is also a path in, and I contracted bacterial meningitis in 2014. Almost 4 years after the bomb blast, I was back in the hospital, and it nearly killed me. For 4 days, I wasn't even lucid. My girlfriend at the time, Michaela, my wife now, said those poor nurses trying to hold you down because you were so confused. You broke out of your restraints. And it took 8 of these little girls to hold you down. I'm so sorry. But when I came out of it 4 days later, it felt like I was underwater. But my ears felt congested. I could barely understand what people were saying, and it was getting worse by the day. And the doctor said, you've got bacterial meningitis, and it's going to steal what's left of your hearing that bomb blast hadn't taken. You're going to be 100% deaf in a few days. So what you're telling me is that I'm never going to have to pretend to pay attention ever again? Michaela and my mom are in the room, and I'm pretty sure it was because my hearing was so far gone already, because the joke was great, but I didn't hear them laugh. Anyways, I remember the moment when I took a bite out of one of those, like a tortilla chip, and I couldn't even hear that jawbone conduction. I couldn't even hear the crunch. After a few weeks, I was back in my home, and I was sitting at the breakfast bar in my kitchen, right? And I was actually holding on to it because my balance was so bad. It was like 24-hour vertigo. And I was feeling that despair, that hopelessness, all over again. You ever have one of those days? Why me? When is enough enough? Like, when have I paid my dues? When have I put in my fair share of struggle? I was supposed to be this beacon, right? I was supposed to be a voice for others struggling. And instead, I was knocked right back down to the mat. Now, remember in Hal Elrod's book, The Miracle Morning, how he gave himself that, was it like the 5-minute rule? And there's only so long you can spend in a pity party, right? Until you just have to do something else. And in EOD, there was a saying called, there's a phrase called time on target. The Navy SEALs, they call it get off the X. And the meaning between both is that the longer you spend in one place, the more precipitously the danger becomes. Every moment you're there, it starts to multiply. The chances of an attack, chances of something going wrong. So you have to keep in motion. Get off the X, reduce your time on target. You don't want to be standing right on top of that time bomb. We got to keep moving. So I had to figure out right then and there, was I going to be spending my time on target right there at my breakfast bar, or was I going to get moving? So I gave myself the 5-minute rule. I let myself mourn the loss of my hearing for 5 more minutes, and I didn't even need that. As it turns out, once you make the decision, you just move forward. So I took the trekking poles that, actually, I did what anybody in my situation would do. I started a chocolate company. It was actually Thanksgiving time. And and we decided, Michaela and I decided that we were going to throw this huge spread, this huge feast, right? We're going to invite friends, family, everybody, all over the place. And we're going to just pack the house. It was going to be great. We're not going to worry about me and my situation. We're just going to have Festivus, right? And I started cooking weeks in advance. I started making cakes and pies and cookies and just put them in the freezer. I started making batch after batch of fudge. I would change the recipe a little bit. I would throw nuts and spices. I'd go to the liquor cabinet and dump a little there, a little bit there. And I do batch after batch and set it aside. And just do some more, put it in the freezer and pull it out on the day. But Michaela noticed 2 things. One, she noticed, this was like 6 months after the illness, and I still hadn't gotten my cochlear implant in. So for 6 months, I'm trapped in my body. If you can imagine for a moment sensory deprivation, being trapped in your body, your entire world ending at your fingertips. I couldn't get on the treadmill because my balance. I had to hold on to the side of like the counter while at the stove just to keep from falling over. And Michaela noticed those 2 things. One was a smile on my face she hadn't seen in like 6 months. I was having fun. I was cooking again. I was doing something other than thinking about the terrible stuff going on. I had a purpose, a goal. I was leveraging just having something to achieve. Purpose. We all need that. We need goals to accomplish and need the sense of accomplishment and that sense of giving value into a system. I couldn't wait to put smiles on other people's faces with my food. It was just kitchen therapy. The other thing she noticed was that the fudge was just piling up. I mean, there was more than any size crowd could eat in one sitting. So she started sneaking it out the front door, like you got to be real stealthy around a blind deaf guy. She started giving it away to neighbors and friends, and they started coming back and asking if they could buy some for the baby shower coming up or a birthday party. And the capitalist in me said, well, of course you may. And all of a sudden we had a business. Extraordinary Delights, or EODfudge.com. And if you can imagine, I poured everything I could into this, and so did Michaela. I built a pretty admirable gym in the garage, and if you can imagine, I had the treadmill, the stationary bike, a rower, and the newly acquired conveyor belt shrink wrap machine. I took those trekking poles that I used to take up into the mountains, and I started this crab walk thing, this daddy long legs thing, out to my mailbox and back. I'd come home in a wheelchair, and that was a huge step. Might be a small step by comparison, but little accomplishments add up. And then we would go down to the end of the block and back, and then to the gate of the neighborhood and back. And I'd be sweating and exhausted, but smiling. I'd accomplished something new today. I got back on my treadmill and I held on with that iron grip to the stability bar, and I'd hit the quick start button and just start walking. And then I would hit that speed up button once, beep, 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 beep. I walk a little faster each day until I was jogging. And I could hold on with just one hand. And then I got to the point where if I just touched the stability bar, I would realize where I was in relationship to the machine. I could stay safe, and I kept running. And within a year of getting out of the hospital, I ran my first marathon back, and it was my hometown, Akron, Ohio, the Rubber City Marathon. And I got my first sub 4-hour, and my fastest finish to date qualified me for Boston again. And I ran Boston again. And then I started going further. Tried my hand at ultras. And then on July 6th, just last year, I became the first blind, deaf person to complete the world's toughest foot race, the Badwater 135. We took the proceeds from our fudge business and we started buying real estate. Because, like everybody knows, you want to leverage the power of your own money, right? So we took our active income from this new business and we put it into passive. Only thing was, the first real estate investment we started with was out of state. A Burr bought it online auction with a hard money loan. And it turned out just like you would think. We had a couple things going for us, so thank goodness for the power of the economy in 2019. And I started in Akron, Ohio. Had family there who'd actually done some flips, so we had boots on the ground. We had a good team going in there. A magician of a contractor who's actually honest. And I swear, this thing was built in 1930s, and it was built with like untreated lumber. I mean, I swear the roof was only held up by the 1950s wallpaper. And somehow we made it through barely unscathed. And we rolled the proceeds into more properties. And I tell people today that we sell fudge to buy rentals. And we've got properties in Ohio, here in Florida. My wife became the local real estate agent to investors along this 30A. Beautiful scenery. And we started growing our family. We now have almost 5-year-old twin boys, identical, because I shouldn't be the only one who's confused. Started a podcast because what else would a blind deaf guy do? Point of Impact with Aaron Hale. And I think back to that time on Father Crawley, as I was going up that mountain. And that voice in my head, the devil, that whispers and says, you cannot withstand the storm. You know, the saying goes, the warrior whispers back, I am the storm. When the demons come to talk to me, I remember that that's exactly why I do these challenges. So I just smile. I say, I was expecting you. I've been waiting for you. Because I'm here to not test my muscles, but I'm here to test my mind, and I'm here to test my heart. And I will pick up my feet and I will put them down until I reach the end of this race. And then I'll do it again. I will face new and harder challenges because I can leverage the power of my mind. I can leverage the power of other people, teams. See, I had a team of 4 crew, 2 of which were retired Army Rangers. One, my coach, was the team chief, and she'd actually run that race, that course, 12 times. She'd actually done a double, what do they call it, the double Badwater? She ran from the start all the way to the top of Mount Whitney, 146 miles, then back to the start, and then did it again. So that was leverage experience and wisdom, leveraging the power of other people's mindset. And I tell you, that last 15 miles of that race is the toughest half marathon on the planet. But I was smiling the whole way because I knew that I'd gotten through that Father Crawley. I'd gotten past the crucible. I'd faced that demon. I'd flicked it off my shoulder. I said, I am the storm. And I love your eggs, by the way. Remember, there are a few things I've learned along the way. One is to stay humble, because when you feel that you are infallible, that's when you're going to get tested. Remember, keep your head up and look to the horizon. It's when you're only looking at your feet, it seems like the road never ends. Remember to look back from time to time to remind you how far you've come. Remember to communicate. Leadership starts with sharing an idea. Pace yourself. I loved the book Effortless, where the story of the first people to reach the South Pole. There were 2 teams that had actually started off at the same time under the same conditions. Both teams equally provisioned, equally experienced. One was an English team. Robert Falcon Scott was leading it. One was from Norway and led by Roald Amundsen. And the biggest difference between these two was that Scott would push his team as hard as possible when the weather was good and then hunker down when the weather was bad. And every time the weather cleared, he would push them almost to the breaking point of exhaustion. And then the other team, Amundsen's team, he set a goal of making it 15 miles every single day. Good weather, bad weather, no matter what. He would just set a pace for himself and his team. And they'd reached a point, it was about 45 miles from the South Pole. And they could make it with one hard, strong push in a day. But it still took them 3 days to get to the South Pole. Why? He was stuck to his pace plan. I told you, my first 4 marathons, 3 of them qualified me for Boston. My first one was the Air Force Marathon. I'd thrown out my pace plan. We ran as fast and hard. And 300 meters from my first South Pole, my finish, I was cruising really fast. And I hit the ground really hard. I zonked so hard, I woke up in the hospital. my Runkeeper app, still talking out the mileage and time. But I was so out of it that I'd forgotten that I was blind. Imagine learning that you're blind for the rest of your life twice. I never wanted to run again in my life, but I was already registered for 5 more races. Pace yourself. Set a goal, a big, lofty, huge goal. You can accomplish great things so long as you master your mind and you have that team and you communicate. Stay humble, pace yourself, set high and low limits for each day, and trust the process. Compounding works. And never, ever forget how powerful just reframing a situation is. Don't ever say that I have to. When I was selected for Badwater, which is an invitation only 100 runners every year get to run that mother of a race. World-class athletes from all over the globe apply, and only 100 get to run. You have to run to qualify a minimum of 3 100-mile races before you can even apply. So I ran my 3 mandatory races, two of which were in Akron also. One of them was freezing cold, and definitely not a heat race. But I was accepted. I was invited to come. And I was among giants. I didn't even believe that I was fit enough. I'd earned it enough to be among these amazing, incredible runners. And instead of saying I have to do 135 miles across Death Valley, I said, I get to be here among these greats. I get a chance to test myself. I get to be an example again. There's a saying that is stuck in my mind, and I swear I picked it up from a meme on Facebook, but it's always been etched in my head. Someday, the story of your struggle may be the blueprint for someone else's survival. So I struggle. I choose to struggle. I get to struggle each day so I can help others. Maybe to survive, maybe to become millionaires, who knows? But I want to bring others along, and I want to inspire others to do great things. So I too need to do great things. It is my duty, having been a warrior, being a father, being a son, a business owner. It's my ethical imperative that I become the best that I can. And I know from the experiences and the things I've learned from being among other greats is that we all have it. So today, I invite you to face down those demons, those self-limiting doubts, that voice in your head. Go do great things. Remember what you've learned and leverage. And I thank you today.
I got it.
You guys good to do some Q&A? Or?
Yeah, totally.
What's that?
You good to do some Q&A? I just said yes for you, so.
What's that?
I said you want to do some Q&A.
Oh yeah, sure, I'm glad to. Although I may have an overdeveloped output because I've got very limited input.
I'll help.
All right, she'll translate.
Okay, I'll start.
Yes.
So obviously the first
Got the
deal you guys talked about, first real estate deal was a bird deal out of town on
Yeah.
the market. What since then? So that was 2019, I think.
Yeah.
Since then, what have you guys done real estate wise?
He said so since the
What we've done since?
yeah.
We continued in Akron. We bought another burr, which turned out a lot better than the first one. In fact, to go back to that first one, the first mistake was me putting it in my own name on the auction. So then when it went to the hard money, they're like, no, it's got to be an entity. And went to the auction house, and they're like, no, we got to close. Yeah. So we used entirely fudge money on that first project. And then we had to go find a private money lender to get it across the finish line. So real estate university master course. But then we bought a single family fixer that we turned into a short-term rental. We bought a duplex. We're converting one of the sides into a midterm rental right now, but that's been going pretty well for us. That's like a 4% earner right now, just long term.
And then we bought another short-term rental 3 doors down from the original short-term rental. So now we have those 2 individual listings, and then we also offer it as a master listing, so we can rent both houses out to the same party. So the Airbnbs are by far our biggest earners.
And we've done a couple land deals. We're limited partners on a property in an apartment building in North Carolina. And we've done a couple flips here in Florida. And we're coming to Refi Time on a really cool project right just north of us in Devonian Springs, which is 2 houses connected by an in-ground pool covered with a 5-car detached garage that we're going to convert into more living space, turn a little bit of the area, 1.5 acres into some RV pads. So we'll have at least, 3 structures for individual units and a couple additional rental opportunities with the RV pads. We've even got, because it's zoned for
urban residential, so you can fit like 10 units per acre on the property. So
we'll put a couple tiny homes.
That's been my full-time job. This is the first time I've done my hair and makeup in like forever. I'm just up there working nonstop. So, but that's been fun. Trying to sell a house in Pensacola Beach. If anybody wants to buy that, that'd be great. So once we wrap those projects up, we'll get some more.
Exciting, something else.
When breaking past your like mental barriers, what is like? Is it just like a snap? Because you kind of talked about how you just made the decision and everything changed. But do you have like a way that you kind of coach yourself through that?
Did you hear it?
Something about making a decision.
Okay, so he's just saying like when you go to make that decision that you're just going to, like when you're struggling and having a hard time, is it as much as just like making a quick decision that you're going to move on, like move past it? Or how do you coach yourself through just making that decision to, overcome?
It's a process for everything. And for one, you got to feel the feels. You got to allow yourself to feel your emotions. The problem is you can't be overwhelmed by them. You can't dwell on the emotion itself. The emotions are like the smoke detector, the alarm, right? They're telling you something. But you can't just stand there staring at the smoke alarm going off. So I don't know if it's just my upbringing, the military training. I hear that alarm. I hear, the klaxon of incoming missiles, and I go for a bunker. And then I try to figure out where is it coming from? How do I fight back, right? So it's a process that ends up in you moving more quickly once you decide on sticking to a process. I'll give myself 5 minutes to mourn. I'll examine the emotion, then I'll try to figure out how to move forward, and I'll make the decision right then and there. Here's what I'm going to do to produce my time on target.
Thank you.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story and being a powerful and strong person to inspire people, continue to live and be strong people. Thank you so much.
Thanks. She said, she's so sweet. She just said, thank you so much for everything you've done and like inspiring people and continuing to move forward and sharing your story.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm honored to be here and grateful that I was invited.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Why didn't you bring fudge for us to try?
She said, why didn't you bring fudge for us to try? So Aaron didn't know. Not my fault.
She's the marketing person.
So after we started the chocolate business, we obviously started at our house. But then I think that first Christmas, we got an order from Boeing Company for about 1,000 pounds of fudge, and that was the last time I was willing to do a big corporate order myself. And so we ended up partnering with a 60,000 square foot kitchen in Savannah, Georgia, and they actually signed, we have agreements and everything in place, but they make, package, and ship everything using Aaron's recipes. So we are no longer making it ourselves, thank God. It's too much. And
Cooking's my passion.
yeah, I was like, how did I end up becoming Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory? This is not my goal.
But what's great though is that as part of the exercise and the starting this little business and turning it into an e-commerce site, we learned about growing a business, and then found out that I didn't want to stand behind and stand in front of a stove for the rest of my life, and Michaela did not want to stand behind a register.
Yeah, I didn't want to manage a store. I didn't want to manage employees, especially here living at the beach on 30A. Like, finding quality employees can be a challenge, and it's just not how we wanted to.
So we hired out, we outsourced, we leveraged the power of a larger candy company. They do all the supply ordering, they do all the labor, the cooking, the packaging, the shipping, and then the home kitchen becomes the R&D lab.
So then he started a TikTok account.
And the studio.
Yeah, so he does cooking without looking. So he teaches recipes. Yeah, so if you have TikTok, you can follow us. It's EOD Confections is our. It's on Instagram and TikTok, but yeah. So we did that during COVID, and then it kind of took off. And I don't know. I think he has like 149,000 followers or something on TikTok. And so anyway, that's kind of become a fun little side thing.
Yeah, it is fun doing a little a cooking show on TikTok and getting to bring the kids into which are really the stars of the show. But it's fun thing to do as a family, and we learn that every business, no matter what the business really is, at first it's marketing. So, you can make the best product, have the best property, whatever it is, best service. But if you don't let anybody know, if a tree falls in the woods, right? So we started marketing. We do the TikToks, we do Facebook, we do these live sessions, just, the AMAs, Ask Me Anything type things. And that's what solves fudge. And it attracts private lenders to our projects.
Yeah, that's good.
And they're great closing gifts for me too. Yeah.
So you said you like to set lofty goals, and obviously you guys kind of sold off, or not sold off, but partnered out the fudge company. So it's the real estate. What's the long term lofty goal for the real estate?
Yeah. So what's your long-term, like, lofty goal for real estate? Like, what's your next big goal? Mine is to buy a motel and redo.
For me, it's the ability to, give the family everything they want or need. And I'm not saying a trust fund. I'm just saying have the freedom, right, to buy back time. We're almost there. We'll pick a few more properties up. Hopefully, well, Mikhail is skeptical, a villa in Italy, because I want to go back. Also, the honeymoon story is funny. But I think, we're just going to pick up a few properties here and there and turn them, right now, we're ironing out the systems, get that foundation so that each time we add a property, it just goes into the system more smoothly than the last. And we'll see where it takes us. Also, I'm having a great time doing the podcast, sharing these incredible stories, and that's one of the biggest long-term goals for me, is really be successful with the podcast.
When's your next race?
When's your next race? It's running like 3 in April.
April 13th, doing back-to-back marathons. Well, I've got a friend, people look at other people who run 100-milers and go, that's crazy. People who run 100-milers point at my friend and go, that dude's crazy. And he took it on behalf of himself to set a 50 states, marathon, have all 50 states goal for me. So in April, we're going to do back-to-back marathons, one in Louisiana and one in Arkansas the next day. And then in June, it'll be, I think it's called the Patriots course or something like that. There's sections, and it'll be 5 marathons in 5 days. New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Delaware, and Pennsylvania.
Alright, how you got 50 states? How many have you done? Like, are you halfway through? Or?
Have you been tracking how many states you've run marathons in?
I think it's 10 so far.
I don't know. I just stay home with the kids. I'm like, good luck. I'll drop you off at the airport. So.
Do you have a miracle morning routine? You mentioned Hollow Ride, which I'm a big fan of that book as well.
Do you have a miracle morning routine?
What's that?
You have a miracle morning routine?
I do, but with kids, it's not a daily. It's the difference between habits and routines. Habits don't take much thought or effort. Routines do. You actually have to consciously decide to do a routine.
It's tough when the kids come into your room at 4 o'clock and they're like, "We're ready to start the day." And I'm like, "Oh my God, go back to that."
I'm a stay-at-home dad. I work out of the home office. The kids, I've got a 13-year-old and the 4.5, almost 5-year-olds who are on half day at the daycare. So every day, I'm first a stay-at-home dad. I'm the housekeeper, the laundry guy, the personal chef to little kids, and podcaster, marathon runner, business owner. And it's definitely a challenge, especially on half days. But I am not anymore a 4:30 in the morning guy. I think it was actually Badwater that got me out of that routine. And I might have to go back, but I decided when training for Badwater, because it was hot, Death Valley, pretty warm, uh, that I would wait till mid-afternoon to go to my Florida garage with the door closed, and I put one of those mini splits right over the treadmill. And I've got an oscillating fan, I've got a box fan. None of them were turned on. That heat radiating through the tin door. And I started running like noon, one in the afternoon for like 4 hours straight. And that was my training, often in a weight vest with a huge incline, just so I could tell Father Crowley a thing or two. And long answer, but yeah, I stopped doing the 4 a.m., 4:30 wake up to do my miracle morning.
But you used to have your miracle morning, like you used to do that for a while.
Miracle afternoon. Yeah, but I really did for a long time. Did wake up earlier than everybody else, just so I could have that peace and the decision to journal, to meditate, to work out, and it is a life changer. I'm gonna have to start that again.
So you talked about Miracle Morning being one of the books, obviously, that's been very impactful. You also mentioned Effortless. Has there been any other books that you've been able to kind of pull little nuggets of wisdom from that have been helpful?
He said, what other books besides Miracle Morning and Effortless have you pulled, inspiration or little tips and tricks from that you love or recommend?
Oh my goodness, so many. For one, definitely Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink. Everything is my fault.
That's good.
Everything. Everything's my responsibility, especially my response, right? Essentialism, same author as Effortless. The Happiness Advantage talks a lot about leveraging happiness. I get to rather than I have to. That's straight from there. The Happiness Advantage is one of my favorite productivity books because all I got to do is be happy and think about it in a different way. And I swear, it opens up, if you think of literally like your frame of mind being a window to the world in your life, it's like installing this huge, bay window versus a peephole. So I could go on and on about books. I'm constantly listening. That's one of my favorite things about being on the treadmill. And this cochlear is Bluetooth connected to my phone. So I can be listening to podcasts or audiobooks or reading my emails while I'm cooking in the kitchen or running on the treadmill. And somebody like kids or Michaela have to come up and like tap me on the shoulder. Like hold on. Okay. What? What's going on? I'm back out of the matrix. I'm constantly listening to something that's going to help me with that point of view, that perspective, a little bit of a business edge, productivity edge, mindset edge. It's another reason for the podcast. I get to, get some incredible people on the show and have a one-on-one with them.
Yeah, you just went to Maui to be on Brandon Turner's podcast, right?
What's that?
You went and you were on Brandon Turner's podcast?
Yeah. Just got to go out to Maui and was on Better Life. So that was cool. Got to hang out with David Perret and Diego Corzo, if you're familiar with those two names, for a few days. Just hung out with those guys like we're a couple of bros in Maui. And yeah, it was an incredible time. If you don't have a podcast yet, what are you waiting for?
Cool. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.